Let me explain why the Archie story is not what Harry thinks it is. Harry admitted he felt disconnected from Archie at birth and cleans himself of his family before becoming a father. And the news that Montes is losing value while the sausages are on the other side of the planet spending money they do not have.
A room full of strangers in Melbourne and dropped a deeply story about his baby son, Archie. He claimed that after a stressful day, the infant crying the second Harry picked him up, as if the child could sense his anxiety faster than he could recognize it himself. And he shared all of this at a mental health panel, thousands of miles away from the very he was talking about. The behavior didn't just hear a heartfelt confession, they saw something else entirely.
The embarrassing crowd numbers that explain why every event on this tour happens behind locked doors.
Experts in body language and psychology quickly pointed out a father open up. It came across as a classic tactic, the kind that empathy in a very calculated way. That raised eyebrows, especially considering the setting and the audience it was at the same time, securing a massive paycheck tied to a MasterChef Australia appearance, all while being introduced with royal status posters on veterans.
12,000 miles from the child he was talking. Here's what a language analyst watching that clip immediately recognized. That is not a story about a father learning to be vulnerable. That is one of the oldest manipulation techniques in the book.
Meanwhile, questions kept stacking up, like the surprisingly small crowds. Many events were held behind closed. Then came another revelation. Harry admitted he felt disconnected from Archie at birth and needed distance from his family into fatherhood. A statement that added more intensity to an already controversial narrative. Then came more talk about their Montecito mansion losing value, while they were halfway across the world spending money like there's no limit. Raised eyebrows, especially with everything else going on.
Every single time I went to work and I came back, if I was stressed, the moment Archie, he would start crying. He would notice it quicker than I could.
So, yeah, welcome back. Let's get straight into it and break this down properly. Here's why that Archie story doesn't land the way Harry might think it does. The panel in Melbourne at W Oval, Harry sat down with Dr. Z and shared this moment. He said, every single time I went to work, and when I came back, if I was stressed, the moment that I held Archie, he would start crying. He would notice it quicker than I could.
He positioned himself as the victim of his own stress.
On the surface, I would reacted exactly how you'd expect. Quiet nods, soft sympathy, seeing a father being open, but when you look a little, the tone shifts fast. To someone who understands emotional dynamics, that statement hits very differently. It's not just a confession. In that one moment, three things were happening at once. First, he framed himself as someone overwhelmed by stress.
He used his child's emotional reaction as how deeply his.
Second, he pointed to his child as proof of how intense that stress must be. And just like that, the story takes on a whole new layer that many people ditch it. And third, he chose to share all of this at an event where seats reportedly went as $2,400. That shifts the tone completely. It's no longer just vulnerability. It's a performance of it. Carefully to space where emotion and money mix at the same time. Now, here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. If that story is actually true,
he delivered all of this at a ticketed event where people paid up to $400 to hear him say it.
If baby Archie really did cry every time his father, stressed out, picked him up, then Harry publicly revealed one of the most private emotional details about his child's earliest moments. This isn't just telling anymore. This is something deeply personal being shared with a room full of strangers. We're talking about a young child who has no control over any of this. One day, he could search his own name and see headlines about how he would be in his father's arms. This wasn't shared in a quiet therapy or written in a private journal. It was said on stage at a branded mental health event with cameras rolling and an audience watching closely. Harry also mentioned that he kept a diary during Meghan's pregnancy, documenting everything along the way.
Of an infant's first weeks of life are being stripped mined for content. The diary became the memoir. The memoir became the speaking fee.
Years later, those private notes seem to have taken on a new life. The diary material. The material turned into a memoir, and the memoir fed into public speaking events. Step by step, early in part of a much bigger, very public narrative. And this all went down where up to $2,400. That detail flips on its head. What might sound like rusty suddenly feels more like a carefully timed moment, in a space where emotion and right now it gets even heavier. If that story is accurate, if Archie really did whenever his father, overwhelmed with picked him up, then that means a deeply private detail about a child's earliest is put on full display. That's not just a share, that's something personal being broadcast to a room full of paying We're talking about a young kid who has zero say in any of this. One day, he might look himself up and see stories to how he reacted as a baby in his father's arms. Exposure, particularly when it's shared on a public stage, in a private space like a confidential conversation. And then there's the diary. Harry said he documented everything during Meghan's pregnancy, writing down moments as they happened. Fast forward a few years, and those same notes seem to have evolved into something much bigger. The diary became source material. The material shaped a memoir, and that memoir now feeds into speaking events, discussions. Piece by what's private family memories turned into content that plays out in audiences, cameras, and headlines. They introduced her as royalty, the same person who told Oprah that royal life seriously damaged her mental health, the same person who spent years saying she wanted nothing to do with that institution. Yet there she was, stepping onto a stage and accepting that title loud, and it raises questions. Especially when that title seems to come back only in moments where there's attention and opportunity attached. And then, paycheck. Sources claimed MasterChef paid around $250,000 for that single appearance, $250,000 for one day. This all happened during a trip as focused on veterans, mental health and community work. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. On that same day, Harry was at events, wreaths at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, meeting with veterans and spending time recognizing service and sacrifice. He even opened with a simple, good, a genuine reaction from. Meanwhile, at the same time, Meghan was on set, appearing as a guest, engaging with contestants in a completely different setting. That side-by-side picture says, on one hand, you have serious, structured events centered on remembrance. On the other, a high-profile TV appearance tied to entertainment and a major paycheck. Contrast became one of the most talked about acts of the entire tour, showing two very directions playing out at the exact same time. Here's where people really start dots. Split, therapy in the spotlight, business happening right behind it. That's the impression some commentators walked away with, saying the public moments bring the attention, the private deals bring in the money. And then there's the timing that raised eyebrows. Some even pointed out that Meghan's appearance lined up closely after publicly MasterChef. Coincidence? Maybe, but it really got people talking. And when you look at this entire tour, another stands out. Every event is either bait security, inside controlled venues, or part of ticketed spaces. That kind of limit shows up. And what gets it's not the open, walk-through crowds expect figures on a tour like this. What's out of Melbourne claimed that around 100 people gathered outside the venue of Harry. City with millions of residents, that no discussion. Especially when people compared it to 2008, when massive crowds filled the streets during earlier with thousands showing up, spaces packed wall to wall. Back then, that level of attention seemed to signal endless momentum. Fast forward to now, and things look much more controlled, much more contained. Public walkabouts are noticeably missing, with structured appearances and limited access. The official explanation pretty concerns, including public discussions and funding. Still, the difference in visibility then and now is hard to ignore. MP David Limbrick even for them to cover policing costs. That kind of pressure adds another layer to beyond politics. There's something even more. Sidewalks don't lie. Spaces aren't. No statement or press release can really change that image. So, instead, they move through controlled settings, hospitals with carefully selected attendees, panel discussions where people paid to be in the room, and TV studios where they be guided producers. It creates a completely different atmosphere. one that feels from start to finish. At one point, fans were reportedly locked out of because Harry was inside hosting his panel. Regular people couldn't even get their usual space, all so the event could stand secure. That moment, with a lot of observers, especially given the message being delivered inside those walls. Then there's what's happening behind the scenes. Some commentators claim each day is being carefully reviewed and pieced to packages, not just for media clips, but for something bigger. According to reports, this material could be aimed at showing organizations games, but they still carry influence, while also strengthening us around future security arrangements. And that back to why public walkabouts seem to be missing. It's not just about safety concerns. Some believe it's about optics. Thin crowds don't make strong, and they definitely don't make highlight reels. Meanwhile, during that same Melbourne panel, Harry dropped another comment that hasn't gotten as much attention. It definitely deserves a closer look. He also said something that caught a lot of attention. Admitted he felt a sense of disconnection when Archie was born, explaining that he had to deal with he could fully step motherhood. His exact words were, "I knew that I had stuff from the past to deal with, and therefore cleanse myself of the past." That line, "cleanse myself," really stood people talking, because it raises what exactly was he referring to? The past can mean a lot of things, but listeners quickly connected it to his well-known issues with his family. That includes relatives he has openly discussed in interviews, books, and public appearances. The timing made it even more noticeable, with major family events happening around the same that he chose to attend. So there he was, speaking to a room full of strangers, explaining that he needed distance from his past before he could. And yet, in that same conversation, he also said, "There's no judgment, there's no blame, there's no point of the finger." Contrast didn't go unnoticed by many people watching and listening closely. It created a moment that felt layered and, to some, a bit inconsistent. On one side, there's a message about personal growth and moving forward. On the other, there's a long board of very direct statements about family tensions. That mix is exactly why this quote ended up getting more attention, as people revisited what was actually said on that stage. This is the same person who told Oprah that his father stopped taking his calls, the same one to deep detail about feeling growing up. Those moments are already widely discussed and replayed. So when he now says the finger-pointing phase is over, people notice the especially when that message is delivered at an event that cost up to $2,400. Then came another line that really made people pause. He referred to his children as upgrades, saying, "From my perspective, our grades." That attention fast. Followed it up by saying, "That's not how I was taught," and wouldn't expand much further. The implication was clear enough for many listening. For some, it sounded like a direct comparison between generations, that his bringing fell short of what he now aims to provide. That kind of statement naturally leads to interpretation, especially given everything publicly about family dynamics. At the same time, questions have been raised about closer to home. Reports of ongoing issues, staffing changes, or direction. And while they've been traveling and making appearances abroad, there's also been talk from real estate observers, including Mark Hunt, noting shifts in property activity in their Montecito area, with fewer homes changing hands. All of these pieces together paint a picture that feels complicated and still very much in motion. Property area is slowed down, with only 5 homes crossing the $10 million mark in the entire quarter. That's a noticeable dip, especially for a high-end Montecito. Their own property, originally bought for around $14.65 million, is now estimated much higher. But with the direction isn't exactly stable. And while all of that is happening back home, they've been overseas, appearing at events, television spots come with major paychecks. That contrast is what's catching attention. Meghan even once said, "We didn't have jobs, so we were not going to come and see this house," referring to the time before. Quote is now being brought back into the conversation as people question how things have evolved since then. So it is driving these trips and appearances. Some critics argue it looks like a facing causes and behind-the-scenes business moves, veteran-focused events and mental health discussions on one side, and high-profile media appearances on the other. From that perspective, every handshake, every speech, every good starts to feel like part of a larger production. Not necessarily fake, but say that message unity all at once. Looking at day 2 of the Oscar through that lens, it becomes a very different picture. Moments that felt on stage can also be a broader media cycle, where personal public appearances intersect with professional in the background. And when you step back and look at the full picture, another pattern starts to show up. It's not just about what's being said, it's about how everything is being delivered to the public. Every appearance feels timed, statement feels placed, and every headline seems to build on the last one. Because, think about it, these aren't random moments. These are carefully selected stages, controlled audiences, and high-visibility platforms where every word carries weight. Whether it's a panel, a TV appearance, or a formal visit, the environment is always structured in a way that keeps things polished. At the same time, critics keep pointing out messaging doesn't always line up cleanly. On one side, talk of privacy, stepping back, and wanting from public. On the other side, there's a steady stream of interviews, appearances, and personal stories be it in very public ways. That keeps the conversation going, and not always in a positive direction. And that's where the real tension sits. It's not just about one comment or one event. It's about the overall strategy that people think they're seeing unfold. A mix of personal storytelling, public advocacy, and high-profile opportunities, all being together as attention locked. And whether that's intentional or not, it's exactly why every move can be analyzed from every angle. And just when things might settle down, another layer gets the story. Because now people aren't just watching what happens on stage, they're pissing off stage to the gaps, the silences, the moments where even more questions, for examples on what isn't happening. No open, spontaneous crowd interactions, no unfiltered moments where the public can engage freely. Everything feels scheduled, contained, and carefully managed. Kind of structure keeps things smooth, but it also keeps things, and people are noticing that difference more than ever. At the same time, every new appearance adds to a bigger narrative that's already under a microscope. One comment, the headlines debates, and those debates feed right back into the next event. It's a cycle, spinning, with each moment building on the last in a very visible way. And that's why this tour being dissected piece by piece. It's not just about it's about how it all connects. The messaging, the timing, the settings, the reactions. It all stacks up into an ongoing storyline that people can't seem to look away from, no matter which side they're on. And by this point, the conversation isn't slowing down. It's getting louder. Every clip, every quote, every appearance keeps adding fuel to a situation that's already packed with tension. People aren't just reacting anymore, they're a bigger picture of what they think is really going on. What stands out most is how everything feels from start to finish. The timing, the messaging, it all comes as tightly managed, almost to chance. That might was polished. But it also makes every move feel calculated. It's exactly why so many are questioning the authenticity behind it all. Then there's the action, which is far from unified. Some still see genuine intent and positive, while others are calling out what they between words and action. That split is what keeps the story alive. Because no matter what happens next, there's always going to be another angle, another interpretation, another to take off. And right in it all, the spot anywhere. If anything, it's getting sharper, with more people watching closely and analyzing every detail. Because stage, it's not just about a single tour or a few comments. It's about a growing narrative that keeps evolving, a new moment that people won't ignore. And now, shifting again, because people are starting to question, what's the end goal here? When you line up all the appearances, the statements, and the timing, it begins to feel less random and more like a long game, being played out in real time. There's a growing sense that every move is part of a wider strategy. The panels build the message, the interviews and the others keep the spotlight locked in place. It's a cycle that keeps repeating, and with each round, actions get stronger and more divided. At the same time, and perception isn't closing. It's getting wider. On one side, there's a clear effort to present purpose, advocacy, and impact. On the other, critics keep to the commercial side, questioning how much of this is driven by opportunity rather than intention. Tension is what pulling more attention into the story. And the longer this plays out, the harder the message from the method, because now people aren't just listening to what's being said, they're watching how it's delivered, where it's delivered, and who benefits from it. Every detail matters, and detail gets picked apart. At this point, it's not even about one moment anymore. It's about the pattern that's forming, and the fact that more and more they're starting to see exactly how it all connects. She says she's overwhelming public attention, yet the crowds now look so thin that entire areas have to be closed off just to manage appearances. That contrast is hard to ignore. Then you have a man saying he holds no blame toward his family. Much of his narrative and income still revolve around those same family tensions. And back in California, that $15 million property sits in a market that's showing signs of slowing down, adding even more pressure to the bigger picture. At the same time, this trip to Australia was about service, about community, about meaningful causes, but are looking at it differently. To them, it feels like that is serving the brand first, while the real cost of it all becomes a growing question. Now it's your turn. What's your turn here? Put your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is far from over. And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, so you don't miss what comes next.